Hello, everyone. Dr. Mad here. Let's get mad about Macbeth. So, in this lesson, we're going to look at scene 6 and scene 7. But scene 6, we're going to skip through quite quickly, and you'll see why later on. But let's start by listening to the two scenes.
This castle hath a pleasant seat. The air nimbly and sweetly recommends itself unto our gentle senses.
This guest of summer, the temple-haunting martlet, does approve by his loved mansionry that the heaven's breath smells wooingly here. No jutty, frieze, buttress, nor coign of vantage, but this bird hath made his pendant bed and procreant cradle. Where they most breed and haunt, I have observed the air is delicate.
See our honoured hostess. The love that follows us sometimes is our trouble, which still we thank as love. Herein I teach you how you shall bid God ild us for your pains, and thank us for your trouble.
All our service, in every point twice done, and then done double, where poor and single business, to contend against those honours deep and broad, wherewith your majesty loads our house. For those of old, and the late dignities heaped up to them, we rest your hermits.
Where's the Thane of Cawdor? We cursed him at the heels, and had a purpose to be his purveyor. But he rides well, and his great love, sharp as his spur, hath helped him to his home before us. Fair and noble hostess, we are your guest tonight.
Your servants ever have theirs themselves, and what is theirs incompt, to make their audit at your highness' pleasure, still to return your own.
Give me your hand. Conduct me to mine host. We love him highly, and shall continue our graces towards him. By your leave, hostess.
If it were done, when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly. If the assassination could trammel up the consequence and catch with his surcease success, but this blow might be the be-all and the end-all here. But here, upon this bank and shoal of time, we jump the life to come. But in these cases, we still have judgment here, that we but teach bloody instructions, which being taught return to plague the inventor. This even-handed justice commends the ingredients of our poisoned chalice to our own lips. He's here in double trust. First, as I am his kinsman and his subject, strong both against the deed. Then as his host, who should against the murderer shut the door, not bear the knife myself. Besides this, Duncan have borne his faculties so meek, have been so clear in his great office, that his virtues will plead like angels trumpet-tongued against the deep damnation of his taking off. And pity, like a naked newborn babe, striding the blast, or heaven's cherubim, horsed upon the sightless couriers of the air, shall blow the horrid deed in every eye, the tears shall drown the wind. I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which o'erleaps itself and falls on the other. And now what news?
He has almost supped. Why have you left the chamber?
Hath he asked for me?
Know you not he has?
We will proceed no further in this business. He hath honoured me of late, and I have bought golden opinions from all sorts of people, which should be worn now in their newest gloss, not cast aside so soon.
Was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? Hath it slept since, and wakes it now to look so green and pale at what it did so freely? From this time, such I account thy love. Art thou afeard to be the same in thine own act and valour as thou art in desire? Wouldst thou have that which thou esteem'st the ornament of life, and live a coward in thine own esteem, letting I dare not, wait upon I would, like the poor cat of the adage?
Prithee, peace. I dare do all that may become a man. Who dares do more is none.
What beast was then that made you break this enterprise to me? When you durst do it, then you were a man. And to be more than what you were, you would be so much more the man. Nor time nor place did then adhere, and yet you would make both. They have made themselves, and that their fitness now does unmake you. I have given suck, and know how tender 'tis to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done to this.
If we should fail...
We fail. But screw your courage to the sticking place, and we'll not fail. When Duncan is asleep, whereto the rather shall his day's hard journey soundly invite him, his 2 chamberlains will I with wine and wassail so convince that memory, the warder of the brain, shall be a fume, and the receipt of reason a limbeck only. When in swinish sleep their drenched natures lie as in a death, what cannot you and I perform upon the unguarded Duncan? What not put upon his spongy officers, who shall bear the guilt of our great quell?
Bring forth men, children only, for thy undaunted metal should compose nothing but males. Will it not be received, when we have marked with blood those sleepy 2 of his own chamber, and used their very daggers, that they have done it?
Who dares receive it other, as we shall make our griefs and clamour roar upon his death?
I am settled, and bend up each corporal agent to this terrible feat. Away, and mock the time with fairest show. False face must hide what the false heart doth know.
Okay, so that was scene 6 and scene 7. So, as I said, we can skip scene 6 because if we look at the summary, so King Duncan arrives at Macbeth's castle. He's greeted with great respect by Lady Macbeth, and it's really just a continuity scene, okay? There's nothing much in there that we need to analyze. We can go through it briefly. So, hautboys is a musical instrument. You don't really need to know that, but it's nice to learn some things. And so Duncan arrives, and they just make small talk about the weather, how the breeze is very nice. And Banquo talks about some bird that he sees and the castle. And then Duncan says, "Oh, here's Lady Macbeth." And they just exchange pleasantries. And Lady Macbeth responds very politely and respectfully. The only thing we can say about this scene is that if you remember, at this point, Lady Macbeth is planning to kill Duncan or have him killed. So, on the one hand, Duncan is when he's being polite, he's genuine, but Lady Macbeth is not genuine. So, this scene does tie into one theme. Can you think of what that is? Appearance and reality. Yeah. The show that she's putting on is not what she's really thinking. And then Duncan says, "Where's the Thane of Cawdor?" And that's obviously Macbeth. And he says, "We are your guest tonight." And Lady Macbeth says, "Yes, we are your servants." So just being very, very respectful as you would be to the king. And Duncan says, "Give me your hand." So he's giving her some honor and take me to Macbeth. So yeah, this is just a short scene just to show us that King Duncan has arrived at the castle, but we don't need to really analyze it too much. Okay, so let's move on to scene 7. So this is a very important scene, as one of the most famous scenes in the play and in literature, if you like. So the summary is that Macbeth agonizes over the killing. He decides not to go ahead with it. Lady Macbeth berates him, which means to tell somebody off really badly, and encourages him to do it. And finally, by the end of the scene, Macbeth is convinced and manipulated to go ahead with the killing. Okay, so Sewer means chief servant. So again, you don't really need to know that, but it's nice to learn some words to increase our vocabulary, our literacy skills. And by the way, in schools, we try to think about oracy as well, speaking clearly. That's one of the reasons I'm playing the audiobook to you, so you can see professional actors or hear professional actors talking. So Macbeth enters and he goes into this long speech. And it says, so it's a very difficult scene. Don't worry too much about trying to understand every single line. Remember, the key thing about Shakespeare is not to get bogged down in every single line. In the exam, you are given an extract. You need to recognize the extract and know how to relate it to the rest of the play. But you don't need to know every single line. If you can just pick up 3 or 4 quotes from it, and then 1 or 2 quotes from the rest of the play, that's more than enough for your essay, no matter what grade you want. The grade will depend on how you write your paragraphs. So he says, if it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well, it was done quickly. So that's fairly straightforward up to there. He's just saying, if I'm going to do this, it's best to just do it quickly and get it out of the way. If the assassination could trammel up the consequence and catch with his surceased success. So don't worry about these lines here. That but this blow might be the be-all and the end-all here, but here upon this bank and shoal of time would jump the line life to come. Right, so actually you probably could skip this bit as well for if you're just aiming for grade 4, 5, or maybe the first time round that you're reading the play or watching these videos. You could probably skip this bit as well. But I think this line here, upon this bank and shoal of time, would jump the life to come, is worth thinking about. But we're talking about like grade 7 and above here. You might want to pause the video here and ask yourself, what does this line mean to you? What image does it bring to your mind? These 2 lines, this bit here. So pause the video and think about it, and then I will tell you what I think. So for me, this brings to mind an image of Julius Caesar. So because I've read Roman history, so Julius Caesar, he had to cross, there's a river called the River Rubicon, and he was not allowed to cross the river. If he did, it was considered like a sign of war against Rome itself. But he did cross it, and this is known in literature about the crossing of the Rubicon, which basically means that once you do it, there's no going back. So to me, it brings that image to mind. And also we jump the life to come. So obviously the life to come is the afterlife. So for Macbeth, his equivalent of crossing the Rubicon is killing King Duncan. And in his case, if he does that, he's going to go to hell. He knows this, okay? Because in Christianity, you go to hell if you do something really bad. And in this case, killing the king is killing God's representative on earth. So if you remember the context video, and I've mentioned this a few times as well, to kill the king is the worst thing you can do. So he knows that if he does this, he's going to go to hell forever. In other religions, for example, Islam, hell is only for a period of time until your sins are cleansed. Yeah, but in Christianity, you go to hell forever. Okay, but in these cases, we still have judgment here, that we but teach bloody instructions, which being taught return to plague the inventor. This even-handed justice commends the ingredients of our poison chalice to our own lips. So again, you can probably skip most of this, but what he's essentially saying here by this last bit is that he's saying, I mean, he's talking about killing the king and talks about poison here. He doesn't actually poison the king. He stabs him with the knife, right? But he's saying that rather than kill the king, he should kill himself before he does that. Now, the next bit is more important and a little bit easier to understand. So it says he's here in double trust. First, as I am his kinsman and his subject. So that's very straightforward, that we know they are cousins. So for that reason, he obviously shouldn't kill him, leaving aside any other reason. And the word subject means several things in English, as most words do. So it doesn't just mean maths or English. It means that when we're talking about kings and queens, everybody else is their subjects, okay? So Macbeth is the subject of King Duncan. So for both of those reasons, he shouldn't harm him in any way. So strong both against the deed being killing Duncan. Then, as his host, who should against his murderer shut the door, not bear the knife myself. So the third reason why he shouldn't kill him is that Macbeth is the host. And in most cultures, being a host is considered a very serious thing. Yeah, even if you dislike someone, if they come to your house, generally speaking, you will be polite to them. Okay, so that's the third reason he should not kill Duncan. Besides, this Duncan hath borne his faculties so meek, hath been so clear in his great office, that his virtues will plead like angels, trumpet-tongued, against the deep damnation of his taking off. Now, so from here, he's saying that faculties means like your characteristics, your personality. He's saying that Duncan has been a humble king, a good king, have been so clear in his great office. So clear that means good, that he has been a good king. Now, we could actually argue about that because we know at the beginning of the play, Scotland is being invaded by Norway and held by traitors from within Scotland. So you might wonder, well, if he's such a good king, why are these people invading? Why are these traitors turning against him? That might be because he's getting old and people see their chance. But anyway, that's something for you to think about. So all these comments I make, all these commentaries I make, these are the sort of things that you can and should write in your essays. And of course, adding your own views as well. That is so don't worry too much about this. So this is all very poetic way of saying this same thing, that these are all the reasons why Macbeth should not kill Duncan. Okay. Upon the sightless couriers of the air shall blow the horrid deed in every eye, that tears shall drown the wind. So again, a lot of very difficult poetry there. You don't need to worry about that too much. But this last bit here, basically he's saying that if he goes ahead with this, it would be such a terrible deed that if anybody knew about it, they would cry, everybody would cry, so much tears that the tears would drown the wind. It's a metaphor, it doesn't really mean anything. I mean, how can tears drown the wind, right? For a start, tears are water, wind is air, but this is just Shakespeare being very, very poetic. I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which leaps itself and falls on the other. So this bit is quite important. He's saying there's no reason for me to kill Duncan. It's only my ambition. Now this word vaulting is important, and this phrase vaulting ambition. Please stop the video and think about what image this phrase brings to your mind. Okay, so pause the video. Now, to my mind, this vaulting basically means to jump very high. So sorry. Yeah. So to my mind, this phrase brings to mind a pole vaulter, right? Hopefully you've seen in the Olympics, these people, athletes, they jump these huge heights. It's quite incredible, really. You wouldn't believe it if you didn't know it was real. And strangely enough, pole vaulting has been around for a long time. Apparently, even the Greeks did it, although only recently was it introduced into the Olympics. But that's the image that comes to my mind. So Macbeth is saying that this is the only reason why I want to kill the king. It's just my huge ambition. Okay, so now Lady Macbeth comes in. How now? What news? Macbeth says. And Lady Macbeth says he's almost finished his dinner. Why did you leave the room? Macbeth says, has he asked for me? Lady Macbeth says, yes, don't you know he has? And Macbeth says, we will proceed no further in this business. We're not going to do this. We're not going to kill him. He's given me honors, and people are praising me at the moment, have high opinions of me because of I won this battle, and I don't want to lose that so quickly. And now here, this speech is important. This is where Lady Macbeth berates him, tells him off really badly. So remember, for a Jacobean audience, would have been quite shocking to see the woman kind of talking like this to the man. But remember, this is in the castle, in the room. This is not in public. So, as I've mentioned before, in private, women may well have acted like this from the beginning of time. But we're talking about in public, at that time, men were supposed to be strong and brave, and women were meant to be inferior and soft and gentle. So it would have been shocking. But just remember, this is in private that they're talking now. So she's saying, were you drunk when you made this promise? So we can skip these lines here. Just this is the main line here. And then she says, from this time shall I account thy love. She's saying, oh, from now on, I'm going to, everything you say, I'm not going to believe you, even when you talk about loving me and so on. Art thou afeard to be the same in thine own act and valor as thou art in desire? She's saying, are you afraid to do in deed, in action, as you want in your actual desires, as your ambition? Wouldst thou have that which thou esteemest the ornament of life, and live a coward in thine own esteem, letting I dare not wait upon I would, like the poor cat in the adage? So don't worry too much about these lines here, but basically she's saying, would you rather have the ornament of life, in other words, become king, or would you rather live like a coward and just think about it? And Macbeth says, prithee, peace, pray thee, pray you, peace, be quiet. I dare do all that may become a man, who dares do more is none. In other words, I'm a man's man, there's no man greater than me. And Lady Macbeth says, whose beast was it? What beast was it then that made you break this enterprise to me? So here, it gets even worse. She starts to basically compare him to an animal. When you durst do it, then you were a man. When you dared to do it, then you would have been a man. Then you were speaking like a man. And to be more than what you were, you would be so much more the man. Here she's just kind of repeating herself, really. No time nor place did then adhere, and yet you would make both. They have made themselves, and that their fitness now does unmake you. So don't worry about these lines here. She's just going on and on, saying the same thing. Now, this last bit is really important. I have given suck and know how tender 'tis to love the babe that milks me. So we don't know much about Macbeth and Lady Macbeth before the play starts, but from this line we can infer that perhaps they did have a baby, but the baby obviously died, and that maybe explains her character to a certain extent. Okay, so she has had a baby and she breastfed it, yeah, and she says, I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done to this. So she's saying that if I'd made such a promise and then broken it, I would never do that. I would rather take my baby from my breast and dash its brains out. Now that's quite incredible, isn't it? That for a mother to say that is really, really strange. So yeah, that tells you something about her character. Macbeth says, if we should fail, she says, we fail. In other words, then we fail. So what? But screw your courage to the sticking place and will not fail. This word doesn't really mean anything. She's just saying, just be strong, be brave, and we won't fail. When Duncan is asleep, whereto the rather shall his day's hard journey soundly invite him. Well, like she's just saying that he'll be tired from the day's journey, so he'll be sleeping easily. His two chamberlains will I with wine and wassail so convince that memory, the warder of the brain, shall be a fume and the receipt of reason a limbeck only. Don't worry too much about this. So basically, what wassail is another word for wine or alcohol. So is limbeck. So she's just saying that the servants will give them so much wine that they'll be out of it. They'll be in like a pig-like sleep. Swinish means sleep. Their drenched natures lie as in a death. What cannot you and I perform upon the unguarded Duncan? So while they're asleep, we can do anything we want to Duncan because he won't be guarded. What not put upon his spongy officers who shall bear the guilt of our great quell? So she's saying we'll just blame them. And then Macbeth says, bring forth men, children only, for thy undaunted metal should compose nothing but males. So, I mean, we don't need to worry. You can think about these lines here if you want. I mean, this is, I suppose, to do with gender roles and how basically sons are superior to daughters. Obviously, thank God we've moved on from that mentality. Some cultures still sort of believe that, but from this you can see that back in the day, here we used to believe it here as well in this country, in the UK. Will it not be received when we have marked with blood those sleepy two of his own chamber and used their very daggers that they have done it? He's saying yes, people will believe that the servants did it because we'll put the blood on their daggers, on their knives. Who dares receive it other, as we shall make our griefs and clamour roar upon his death? She's saying, yes, of course they'll believe it because we'll cry and shout and be grief stricken. And now finally Macbeth is convinced. I am settled and bend up each corporal agent to this terrible feat. So he's saying, I am settled. That's the main bit you need to learn, really. This here just means, so corporal means physical. Corporal agent, he's saying his every limb, his arms, his legs, his everything. He's going to put everything to this deed now. Away and mock the time with fair show. False face must hide what the false heart doth know. So this is just a poetic way of saying we'll go and pretend, we'll pass the time nicely and pretend to be all nice. So again, this theme of appearance and reality continuously coming up in this play. And that's the end of the scene. Okay, so here are some key quotations. I won't go through them. You don't necessarily need to learn all of them. You only need to learn a few. But so what I'm asking you here is not questions, not to learn them, but just to go through them and answer which quotations are by Macbeth and which by Lady Macbeth. So if you can answer those easily, that's good. If not, you need to go back and revise the video. And just you should pause the video here and try and answer these questions. So the answers are in the next slide. So I'm going to move to the next slide now. You should pause the video if you don't want to see the answers just yet. So there are the answers.